it's Sherry Carroll with Hero Arts, here to show you a quick technique on how to make your own neon buttons. I'm making a card today that's really clean and simple and uses our new neon inks. Plus I've created my own neon buttons for the center of the flower and some of my embellishments. These are really fun and easy to make, so I like to make a whole bunch at a time. So this is really a simple thing to do. You're just going to open up your ink pad and just press it onto a piece of cardstock, and it's like a huge highlighter. These are so bright in real life. So just go ahead and just directly onto the paper, just press that pad, and I just kind of wipe it along. And I'm using three colors here, the neon yellow, neon pink, and neon orange. I've also created a little scallop border that I'm going to be using on my card. Here it is, and I want to just go ahead and color this with the neon pink, so I'll just put this on my scrap paper here, and again I'll just go ahead and wipe that ink pad across. It is so bright. You guys will love these inks. To make the buttons, you can either use the Claudine Hellmuth Studio Matte adhesive, it's a really great adhesive, or Glossy Accents. And for this one I'm just going to use my clear buttons from Hero Arts, and I'll use the Claudine Hellmuth's adhesive here, it's the matte. And I'll just be squirting out a little circle of the matte adhesive. And I'm going to be doing 3 buttons on each of my swatches of color here. So just choose a button, and what you do is just press it on, and I like to give it a little press around, or I'll twist it, and then I like to press that into the paper until that glue comes up through the little center holes. This adhesive dries completely clear, so you don't have to worry about that foggy look that you see right now. So again, I'm just kind of pressing these around, and then I'll press it until the glue comes up through the buttonholes. Once I have all my buttons glued down, I'll let them sit and dry for a bit. Now that my buttons are somewhat dry, I can see because the glue is now clear, but it's still a bit white in the buttonholes. I'm just going to use my Tim Holtz Pokey Tool here and grab that extra glue out of those buttonholes. I like to do this while the glue is still pliable, and the Claudine Hellmuth Matte adhesive really makes it easy to do this. So I'll continue, and I'll do this to all my buttons. So next I want to go ahead and pierce through the buttonholes. So I'm using a piece of plastic that came with a camera case, and I'm just going to go ahead and pierce the paper with my pokey tool and then go in a circular motion. I use this plastic underneath because it doesn't let the paper separate from the button when I'm applying pressure. So now I'm getting the biggest buttonhole that I can so I can use my thread later. So next I'll want to cut out my buttons, and so first thing I'll do is go ahead and get this to a more manageable size. Once I've done that, I like to cut in between the buttons and separate them out, and then I can go ahead and cut them out individually. So I'm just now cutting out them individually. And once I get going, I'll go ahead and lay the blade of the scissors just up against the button, and I'll go ahead and cut around in a circular motion. So I'm turning the button and keeping the scissors straight. So now I'm getting ready to stamp my card, and I'm just using regular Versamark ink on this great flower stamp here. And I'll just be white embossing this on black paper. And since I'm using white embossing powder, I want to go ahead and prep this really well with my anti-static bag. And now I'll just go ahead and stamp onto the black paper, and I'll press around on my stamp, and sorry, I have a naked stamp, it doesn't have the label on it yet, and I'll release that. And now I can just sprinkle this with my white embossing powder, and I keep this in a container now. Got that idea from Jennifer McGuire. And so I'll go ahead and scoop that up and sprinkle it onto my cardstock and tap it onto the back. And once I'm done with that, I can go ahead and heat set my embossing powder. So here I'm just using my regular standard heat gun, and I'll just heat that until that's completely done. And now I'm ready to start adding my buttons. So I've threaded this one with some black thread, and I'm just adding some adhesive to the back. And what I'll do is I'll fold the string back over onto the adhesive, and then I can clip off the excess off the back of the button. And once I have that snipped off, I can go ahead and add some adhesive. And I like to add the adhesive over the string, that way it'll sit onto the card nice and flat. So this had a little bit of a extra string there. And once I have that ready, I can go ahead and press that onto the card. So now I want to stamp my sentiment, and I have this really cute new basic gray stamp that says Good Times, and it kind of reminded me with the neon inks of the 80s. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink this up with the neon orange. And this is a 1/2 inch strip piece of paper that I'm just stamping onto. And this stamp's really nice and bright. I know that you probably can't see it, how it looks in real life, but it's very, very bright. It's exactly neon. So now I'll kind of size this up and figure out how I want to trim this. And I'll just go ahead and do a standard banner cut at the end. So I trimmed off the edge, and now I'm just trimming into the center, and I'll go ahead and do that cut into the center, and that gives me a perfect banner cut every time. So now I'll just kind of hold this up, and I'll trim off the excess off this outer side by just flipping this over and using my larger scissors and just snipping that off. Now I can add my little scallop piece, and I'll just go ahead and add adhesive to the border or the edge of that. And now I can just tuck this under and go ahead and adjust it to how I want it from the front side. And once I have that in place, I can go ahead and press that down. I also want to add some foam adhesive to the back of this panel, so I'll go ahead and put my foam squares on, and then I can press it onto a white card. I'll also be lifting up the little message strip, and so I'm just snipping my adhesive squares in half to create a little bit thinner adhesive or foam dot for these, and then I'll just go ahead and put those in place. Okay, so I've added my message, and now I'm adding a button, and I've added another little piece of foam so that that can sit flush onto the card and the message strip. And now I'll be adding adhesive to this little tiny button, and I have a little bit longer string on this one, and I like to tie the bow at the very end once it's in place. It makes it easy to maneuver. So once I have that pressed in place, I can just go ahead and tie a regular bow just like I were tying my shoes. So it's just a loop, wrap around, and pull the loop through. So here's another look at the finished card, and I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to make neon buttons.